Hello, everyone. This is Ed Amoroso. I want to welcome you to our discussion today. I have a friend of mine, George Eapen, who is the group CIO for Petrofac and a longtime executive, both in IT and also in information security, his long career in both. And I asked George to come on and share some of his learnings with us, particularly this transition from CISO to CIO. It's a big theme for those of us who do information security. And I think George is a wonderful role model for someone who's been able to make that transition very successfully. So, George, I want to welcome you to our discussion. Thanks for making some time today.
Hi Ed, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
George, you were really kind enough to put together some PowerPoint charts here that'll take us through some of your key learnings. I'm going to let you steer through a couple of these charts and maybe take over here and share your journey. I'm very much looking forward to this. And as you go through, I'll probably chime in with some comments or questions. But George, why don't you share a little bit of your story here and take us through your charts?
Sure, fantastic. So I'm George Eapen. I'm the Group CIO of Petrofac, which is one of the world's largest oil and gas EPC companies. Been in this role for the last 3 years, but before that, I was with the same company as a CISO, and I will be talking about my journey from a CISO to CIO. But before that, a quick snapshot of my entire career journey. I started my career with GE back in 2006 as an engineer. I have worked in multiple areas, eventually graduated from GE's Executive Leadership Program in 2013, took my first leadership role in the Middle East and North Africa and Turkey region, managing the infrastructure. Later, I was asked to lead the cybersecurity for the region. Eventually, I was asked to lead the cybersecurity for the international regions, which is anything outside of US. And I could not ask a better company to start my career. G was fantastic. It has given me so many learning opportunities, the network, the mentors. As someone, as a beginner, I don't think, I would be in this place if it was not an organization like G where I was immensely helped by, people around me to learn and, build skill set. So when I got a call from Petrofac to be their first group CISO, as you can imagine, it was not an easy decision for me to leave GE because everything was going fantastic for me in GE. There was no reason for me to leave. But eventually I decided to take a move purely because I want to try something different. And Petrofac was another amazing company where I could start over as a group CISO where, where I can build things and capabilities which was missing. Petrofax was more like a greenfield from a cyber point of view, and I was their first group CISO, which a mandate to build the cybersecurity organization. And 2 years later, we had some amazing success. Within 2 years, we built an amazing team, and which was recognized multiple times through awards and keynotes in major conferences. And in 2020, I was asked to be the CIO. I got promoted to the CIO of Petrofac, and right at the beginning of the pandemic. So it was always exciting and the challenges that I was facing, but I always got the support of the leadership and a great team through which I can get over through those challenges. So today, I'm here to share some of my learnings from the CISO journey and the CIO journey and what I think is similar. First of all, I'm representing my personal views here and my personal learnings. Um, One of my key observation about a CISO role is that it's not defined consistently across organization. This is because I spoke to multiple CISOs in my career, and when we talk to each other, I have seen that there is always difference in scope or the way we operate, mainly because of the industry we represent, but sometimes based on our own background. Because as a CISO, we bring a little bit of personal experience in how we do the job. To give an example, I've seen CISOs who manages identity and trust, but also have seen in some organization identity and trust is with CTO. I have also seen CISO managing product security and product engineering, but there are organizations where CISO doesn't do that. I also have seen some CISOs manage OT security. In some organizations, they don't. So I don't think there's a silver bullet for what CISO should do. It also depends on the organization, the maturity of the organization, and so it's a bit of free room for you as a CISO to define how you want to do your journey, and the role is not consistent like a CEO or a CFO, which I don't think varies from industry to industry. So that gives a lot of personal freedom. So what I'm going to share may work for you guys, but it's my personal experience. It may not work also. Um, the first learning which I had in my career as a CISO is that there is no perfect world, and we have to be comfortable with risk, and it's there always, and we have to do a good job in mitigating the risk. But we should not be following approach of sky is falling down. You may get the attention first, second times, third times, but then you are not going to get that attention because there is always a risk, and all functions has a risk. um, in other words, we should not be celebrating incidents to a level where creating a bigger attention for our function, rather manage it and communicate in the right forum in the right way. Another key learning which I had in my career or my CISO journey was the importance of communication skills. So people ask me what skills you have to develop to be a good CISO or a good cybersecurity executive, and we always talk about technical skills. Something we completely underestimate is the importance of communication skills, the ability to tell a story. How can you put a narrative so people who are non-technical can understand it? My personal view is that we talk too much technical and we sometimes lose the audience. I always look cybersecurity or a CISO role has two elements. One, you need to be stay on top of potential compliance risk. If you are especially operating in multiple geographies, you need to stay compliant to the regulation. And the second area of focus is don't get breached. Basically, you need to manage the cybersecurity risk. So the way you should think about it is you may be super good from a compliance point of view, you may clear all the audits. That doesn't mean that you're fully secure and you cannot get breached. Similarly, you may implement a lot of controls and you secure yourself from a potential breach. That doesn't mean that you're fully compliant and you will succeed in all the regulatory or customer audits. So when I structure my risk into these two categories, and once I put some context, it's very easy for me to communicate to people who doesn't understand cyber, but I can relate it to a compliance risk or a cybersecurity breach, which they can easily understand. Another aspect I'd like to share with you guys is the importance on focusing the real business risk. Is ransomware the real risk, or the business disruption caused by ransomware is the real risk? Is data loss the real risk, or the business disruption caused by data loss is the big risk? So I'm of the view that the risk are really business disruption or goodwill loss, things like that. So this is where I feel that a lot of focus should be on resiliency. How good is your backup and can you recover? And I always tell that we have to do a very good job to reduce the probability of a cyber attack, but we also need to focus to reduce the impact of an attack if it happens. So that's where I think resiliency is one of the key area which we need to focus. I would like to highlight the importance of listening skills, because you may not know everything about your business, and the role of a CISO is to enable the business, not a disruptor. I always think that as a cybersecurity leader, you get a lot of weightage in any organization, which you can compare to how much importance that a compliance leader gets or an internal audit, because we have been looked at by other functions as someone who will help them to course correct. So I think we get a lot of more weightage in our opinion, but that doesn't mean that we just need to go and force our opinion on others. Always listen to see, do we have a better way to do things? Are we helping the business or disabling the business? One thing which I feel that we can always learn from others' learnings. So if there is a incident in any other organization, of course it's not a public info. But I always believe there is a lot of learning we can get from talking to others, talking to other CISOs. Um, I I benefit a lot from having a great network, and I believe collective defense is the way to go. You have to give your knowledge, and you have to go and try to get the knowledge from other peer groups. I would like to highlight the importance of basic hygiene. So, if you look the history of any cyber breach, any major cyber breach, which happened in the last decade, if it's an enterprise-wide breach, it happened purely because one of the core services got compromised, mostly your Active Directory or domain controller through which the bad guys can access rest of your infrastructure. So if you can protect your crown jewels, right, the key, the core services, you probably will be able to prevent a massive enterprise-wide breach. So you always need to layer your controls in a way that start from your crown jewels and work backwards, and make it so difficult for the bad guys that they have to go through at least 6 to 7 controls to really go to that crown jewel and create an impact. So I keep telling pets versus cattle approach. So the way you should think about is, if you have unlimited budget and you have the luxury, you can create a Chinese wall across your entire state, but it's not easy and it's not possible. So cattle is something which is actually in your area, in your yard. They're just outside, they're roaming around, they're eating food. And if you lose a cattle, definitely it's going to hurt you, but you will move on. But you will have 2 or 3 pets which you probably care way too much, which is staying with you in your home, and you cannot afford to lose your pets, right? So I always try to compare your crown jewel to a pet which you cannot afford to lose versus a cattle which, yes, it's sad to lose one, but you can still move on. I always believe that complacency is the real enemy. We have amazing set of people who do great job, but after a few years, I believe it's very important for us to do rotations or bring new pair of eyes to get a new perspective. I'm more worried when I see old green than old red. And the final piece of learning which I'd like to share is, we have to develop the culture where it's okay to have a debate, it's okay to get difference of opinion. Go and understand how your business operate. Keep saying that don't be an ivory tower CISO. What I mean by that statement is, don't sit in the headquarters in the luxury of and make policies or roll out controls without understanding the impact of that in a manufacturing plant somewhere very far from your HQ, right? So be on the ground, try to understand what business does, how do they generate revenue, try to bring that perspective to understand how your controls or your decisions or your policies is going to impact their operations. So be on the field, talk to people, try to understand, and always encourage this culture of a healthy challenge. So what are the key learnings I had as a CIO? It's a completely different set of learnings. First thing I learned as a CIO was, you have a bigger team, and pace yourself. You can only run as fast as your team can run, and always use a forward looking mirror. I've worked with amazing CIOs in my career, fantastic people. Not all of them were successful. And I think the reason why some of them were not as successful as they should be was because they were trying to do a lot of things. So look at your team, and you can only run as fast as your team can run and business can run. The first piece of advice I got when I became a CIO was that from now onwards, you are not an IT leader, you are a business leader. And I always go with that mindset now, because yes, as a technologist, as a strategic advisor on technology to the board or GEC or CEO or CFO, people look at your technical skills, but actually business skills is going to get a seat at the table. Combine your technical skills to a business imperative. I always tell that people is your biggest asset. You also need to nurture and retain talent. But there is an interesting thing called addition by deletion. look at your team, and if maybe you have a bad apple, if you have someone who is being disruptive, maybe deleting will give you more productivity rather adding more and more people. um, so listening skills is way more important as a CIO. What I would like to highlight here is I normally apply will principle. So will stands for wait. Normally I wait to get the right opportunity to probably act. I stands for ignore. Sometimes I sit on things for a day because things get automatically closed. Because sometimes people reach out to me, but it just gets sold itself. L and L are listen, right? You have to listen double. Um, my style of leadership is extremely approachable. People can easily walk in, talk to me. Anyone can send an email to me. So I myself are making myself extremely approachable to anyone in my organization. So people will come to you. So that's great, but please don't undercut your team, right? So I always make sure that even though I make myself available, I probably redirect some of these asks to my team because I don't do their job. I don't want to, undercut any of my team. So that's something which I always follow, and I think it's a key learning for anyone. Um, you will have conflicts in your job, and conflicts normally can be with business related to some decision making. You cannot make everyone happy. Um, we will try our level best for a consensus building, but sometimes you have to go with your conviction because you are tasked with a job and you have to do the right thing for the company. But I always think that we are not going to work. We are going to work, not going to a war zone. So it's okay. We may have a conflict with someone on a topic on a day, but the very next day you may still need to work with them on a different topic because start with a new page every day. Don't carry the baggage of previous day to next day. Let's aim for excellence and perfection, but we all are humans and there's no perfect world. So there may be areas you will be getting A, but there may be areas where you may be B or C. It's okay. So, but you have to prioritize and make sure your top priorities are getting an A rating, and understand that it's normal that we will not be able to get excellence in every single thing. Something which I followed when I come up with a digital strategy for my organization was I came up with a strategy which works for my organization. I never looked at what others are doing because there's a lot of context, right? What works for other organization may not work for my organization. So my key learning here to others is never chase others' success. And another thing which I would like to highlight here is no news is good news, and be comfortable to operate outside of limelight. So there are areas like digital or cyber which get always attention, but I don't think we all are getting excited when you have network uptime of 100% or application uptime of 100% because it's been seen as a basic necessity. Like so, but it's not easy. It's not easy to get 100% uptime for your applications or network or your infrastructure. So there are bits and pieces of your job like operations, which is not easy, but it may never get the right attention because it's expected, it's taken as granted. So be comfortable with that. I also saw a lot of similarities between CIO role and CISO role. First similarity, I felt that when I was CISO, I really understood the business really well. That helped me as a CIO. Knowing your business is really helpful. But other than that, what I really felt is the power of communication. Relationship matters. Authentic in your communication, authentic leadership. One key learning I have from is that never ever blame things on your predecessors purely because you don't know the context in which they were operating. They may have done excellent work in their context. Maybe they don't have the same budget or same remit or same support. Maybe their priorities were different. And when you start a role, you'll always have unfinished business. You always have issues which you inherit. That doesn't mean that your predecessor are doing a bad job. So I always, when I talk to someone and if someone says that, oh, how bad it was and how he's going and fixing it as a hero, I personally doesn't feel that's the right way of telling. And I don't think, especially in the cyber community or a CIO community, which is a close knit, that leaves a good branding for yourself. I'm a big fan of making people accountable and take myself accountability, but there's a big difference between accountability and creating a stressful work environment. And one of the key learning from me personally, which I saw in a lot of my colleagues also, is the importance of mental health, especially when we're working from home, remote working during COVID. Never underestimate. I always try to put an effort to understand, additional context of my employees, what's happening in their life. If they are not performing, what is causing it? If they're going through a bad personal situation, that's perfectly fine. We need to give them space. We need to support them. So try to understand, the difference between making people accountable and creating stressful work environment, and take care of your people, including physical and mental health. This another key learning, which is decision making. One thing which I believe that you have to do as a CIO as well as a CISO is take your decisions. You don't have the time to be a fence sitter. You cannot delegate it upwards, downwards, or sidewards. Take your decision. Yes, some of the decision comes with risk. Make your best decision. Make your best informed decision with the best data available in front of you. Make the right disclosure. Discuss with the right set of people. If you need anyone else to make the decision because it purely stays out of your remit, yes, then bring the additional set of people. But share the data point, share your recommendation. But you have to make your decisions. And the last similarity which I like to share is no room for ego in both rules. There may be many places we make a decision, maybe after a year you realize it was a wrong decision. But when you took the decision, you're making the right decision based on the data available for you. But after a year, you realized, yeah, it was not the right decision. Please do course correct. There is nothing wrong in correcting something was not done in the right way. Because knowing that we can make mistakes is a big blessing. And it all goes back to building your credibility. I believe building credibility is difficult, but guarding credibility is even more difficult. So this is a very key piece of learning. So, on a nutshell, these are the key things I would like to share. Again, based on my learning from my transition from a CISO to CIO, and I hope it's actually going to helpful to some of you.
Those are amazing learnings. George, I want to ask you a quick question. The speed of business, the velocity of business in the last few years has picked up considerably, with primarily based on technology. And now we see artificial intelligence and other things becoming a key factor. Has that been something in your career that you've seen? Have things just seemed to go faster? Just this velocity of everything from life cycle processes to interacting with clients to just having to make decisions. Is that something that has been a theme in your work?
Absolutely. I think every year we're getting smarter, we're getting better. The world is going to a digital world, so I think our end users are way more smarter when it comes to digital technology. Challenge for IT is actually keeping that delight always is very difficult, because what was an awesome thing last year is not an awesome thing anymore. It becomes like a standard. So there is lot of things changing. Automation is a key driver where we can improve productivity. But you do that on year one, on year two, it's normal, right? So you still go back and see what else you can do. We are talking about things like ChatGPT, but the way I look at it is human beings in the history keep evolving. And you know there was a time when we do manual farming, then we introduced animals to make us more efficient, then we introduced el- electric machineries like tractors to make it even more efficient, right? But today if you see someone working on a tractor, you don't feel, wow, this is amazing technology. You don't feel that, right? So we always will evolve. We always will evolve. But the challenge we are saying is the pace of evolution is extremely fast. The cycle is becoming very short. What was delighting customers or end users 6 months back is now the norm. So it's a very difficult thing now to keep the raising the bar, but you need to do your level's best.
On behalf of our community here at Tag Cyber and for the folks who are listening, I want to thank you for making some time today. It's wonderful. If people are interested in connecting with you, is LinkedIn a good place for them to drop you a message or to ask a question?
Absolutely. So if anyone would like to know more about my personal journey, get to know better, network with me, please. LinkedIn is the best place. I'm super happy to connect with my peers.
That's great. George, you're quite an inspiration. A lot of people like myself like to see that transition from CISO to CIO. I think that that's a healthy career plan, and I really do appreciate you sharing with us today. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And for
Take care.
the, and for the rest of you watching, we'll see you all next time.